if you're around me, don't offer me any drugs. Hey y'all, it's Chimney. I want to give y'all the latest update on my marijuana journey. I'm also very pleased about the fact that I am so transparent with you all, that I'm like telling y'all the ins and outs of my relationship to smoking weed. Truly, this is not something I saw myself doing when I first started my YouTube channel. But I had a pretty big breakthrough. It's really shifted my perspective on how I relate to weed. And it comes back to something that I was told about smoking and engaging in really any kind of mind-altering substance. So I'm in this program called the Timeless Wisdom Training. It's a 2-year program focused on healing personal, ancestral, and collective trauma. And when I interviewed for the program, they asked me like, girl, you do any drugs? And I was like, you know, the occasional marijuana. And they said, we really advise that you do not do any of that for the entirety of the 2 years, especially when we meet in person and online during retreats, because what the program does is bring in a lot of light. It's really 2 years of clearing out all of these shadows that have started from like the moment we were born and updating our entire system. The metaphor they use is like, it's kind of like taking yourself through a washing machine, you know? And so this idea that there's a lot happening, there's a lot shifting, there's a lot of light being brought in. And so when you introduce something like a substance like marijuana, that really kind of impacts the way the light is coming in. As y'all know, I was like, you can't tell me what to do, okay? I know better. I'ma do what I want, okay? Well, hold on. First, I was like, you know what? This is the motivation I needed, and I stopped smoking. That was the initial response, was like a sort of superficial, okay, yes. Good point. I will stop smoking. And then it didn't really go so deep into my conscious awareness. And so after a few months, I was tempted and I found myself smoking again. But my entire relationship to weed kind of changed, and I just was no longer this regular smoker like I was back when I lived in LA. And then I had a recent experience where I smoked and I had a very intense insight. I had a couple of really intense insights, and they were both very beautiful. And I'll share them with you. I've shared them with my like personal friends, but every time I share it with someone, it really resonates. So I was like, let me go ahead and share it with you all too. So the first one was around romantic love. I was high and I was feeling so connected to God, and I was like, God, I love you so much. Like it honestly overwhelms me when I really touch in with God and really feel how much God loves me. I have the kind of love for God that I wish God existed as a person so I could give God a hug and be like, I love you so much. Like I wish I could like physically like communicate that love. And I heard God tell me that God, who already loves me so much, that God was going to come in the form of a man and love me through this man. And I was like, what? I was like, that's so much. Oh my, it's already so much as a disembodied form. To actually have you loving me through a person would be so much. Could I even handle all that love? Feeling the sadness that I have a resistance to being loved that much, and also feeling the desire of wanting all that love. Like, wow, I would love that from a man, you know? And in the same sort of vein, I had this understanding drop in, because one of the things that I love about how God loves me is that it's truly an unconditional love. There's so much patience, there's so much understanding, there's so much compassion in this love, and it baffles me. I'm like, how could you have this much patience? Because I know me. I'm like, you are so patient with my journey. And I heard God also share that in the same way that God was going to love me through this person, that I would be an instrument for God to love someone else through me. And I was like, wow. And he said like, and I am going to show you how easy it is to love you. I was like, wow. There are so many people in my life who I truly adore from the bottom of my heart, and most of them are women. And I heard God say like, let me show you a man and you will see him the way I see him, like through God's eyes, through God's love, and you will understand how easy it is for me to love you in the way you love him. And I'm like, whoa. So that was huge. That's a major ass breakthrough, all right? That was the first one. That's the more sort of joyful, loving one. The other sort of major understanding I had was around sight and my vision. On my channel, I have a couple videos about PRK eye surgery. I got this eye surgery a couple of years ago, I think at this point. point, incredible, beautiful, so grateful, changed my life. Best thing that's ever happened to me, like truly. I was in the mirror doing something and I was like remembering that here I am with this beautiful, perfect vision. And I was reflecting on the way that our body and our genetics and our epigenetics and all these things are deeply tied to the spiritual world. And so we'll see like ailments that are related to our spirit and our soul showing up in our body. And I was like, I wonder how it could be for vision, because I was born with pretty like intense nearsightedness. So I really like truly the world was a blur to me. I didn't know, obviously, I didn't have any frame of reference, but truly the world was a blur to me. In my mind, I'm like, how could I be born with that, right? I'm not a conscious soul yet making decisions. So it must have come from my mama. And what I realized, and it kind of hit me like, whoa, was the way in which God has always been protecting me, and protecting me in ways where I would think, oh, this is a detriment, this is a bad thing, or just this is just like a neutral thing. But actually this was also a form of God's protection, because I realized that the intensity of my childhood experience, I was able to not see it with vivid clarity because of my vision. So my vision blurred out and kind of put this filter, this haze over the intensity of everything that was happening in my childhood. And that was a way of keeping me safe, because if I were to see the intensity of everything at full clarity, it would have been too much for me. It would have overwhelmed me. And already as an adult, I'm still dealing with the stuff that then overwhelms me with that vision. So I could only imagine how much more it would have been difficult for me if I could also see everything with perfect crystal clarity. It was maybe in like middle school that I actually started wearing contact lenses. I wore glasses like a few years before that, but not consistently, you know? And then it wasn't until a year ago that I actually was like, I'm ready to see clearly, you know? And that was a metaphor in so many ways. But it never occurred to me that not having perfect vision could be a blessing. Like I always thought, oh, good vision is good vision, and that's what we all want, and anything worse is bad. And actually God dropped into me like, no girl, there are some things that you did not see, and it was wise and it was intelligent that you did not see it. And there's a prayer that good old Thomas Hubel has shared about like, I thank God for everything I see, and I thank God for everything that remains hidden. Because there are some things I know in my life that are happening right now, that are in my family and my environment and my community and my world right now, and they remain hidden because I, in my current state, could not handle it. I could not contain it. I could not process it. I don't have the current resources to be able to see the truth of how things are and let it like roll through me and not let it paralyze and overwhelm me. And that is a blessing. So God is constantly keeping me safe in ways that I don't even realize, and may not even realize until 10, 15, 20 years later, like I did with this vision insight. And so this happened the same day. This happened in a matter of like hours. Maybe like within an hour, I had these two major insights drop in, right? It was very emotional. It's very intense. I'm still processing and feeling like the impact of it. I realized that the reason I even had these big insights is because I smoked. And I'm grateful for the insights. And at the same time, I trust that what I'm supposed to see and when I am supposed to see it, I can trust that God has that under control. And I am not interested in speeding up that process so that things are dropping in before I have the capacity to handle them. And that's what I realized that I was doing every time I smoked, because I had the mindset of like, oh, I'm just smoking for fun. It's just a chill thing to do on an afternoon. It's a nice day. We're gonna go for a walk, be a little high. What fun this will be. And now I'm like, no. Every time I smoke, I am opening the portal in my soul, because I'm already very connected to God. I love God so much. I have a really strong relationship to God. I'm very grateful for that. And so when I get high, the portal just opens up even wider and even more light is let in. And I want to honor myself and my resources in the container of my body so that this light doesn't come in and shatter and break and bust up the windows of my soul, because it's too much for me to handle. And so since that experience, there have been times when I've been like, oh, it'd be fun to smoke. And then I'm like, but I don't want to let all that light in. And then that stops me from doing it. And also when I was so high and connected to God, I was like, I love being this connected to God, and I don't want to have to rely on any substance to get me in that closeness, in that relationship, in that intimacy with God. Like I want to be in my life, waking up first thing in the morning, in the middle of the day, before I go to bed, and feel this like overwhelming, like grateful love, beauty, power, connection to God. I don't want to have to use any substances to get there. And I gave that to God. And so now that is my current journey, is sort of building up that relationship without any any additives, you know, just like building up truly my own spiritual muscles. You know, I think in the beginning of my journey with weed, it was much more about a sort of a general dependency that I didn't like and a sort of numbing that actually kept me from accessing some of the pain, some of the trauma that was keeping me from being able to be present in my life. And then sort of kind of relaxed around it, and I was like, you know, it's not something that I do regularly anymore, but it's still something that's fun. If I'm at a party, I'll do it. Now I'm just like, I'm not interested in that no more. I'm not interested in that no more. Okay, I can't. It's just too much. It's just too much. It's not fun. And it's beautiful to have the realizations. It's beautiful to be connected, but it's not beautiful to not be present and intentional and just really rooted and grounded when I am engaging in my spiritual work, as my spiritual work starts to become like my only work and starts to become like the biggest part of my life. So I just wanted to give y'all this update because I really did not buy in to what they were saying around letting all the light in and being a part of the program, and now I'm experiencing it, and truly experience is the best teacher, because now I'm like, yeah, y'all not gonna catch me just casually getting high. I actually had a whole conversation. This is kind of just like an aside, but I'm sharing it in case it's relevant to you. But I had a whole conversation with a friend of mine that was all about these sort of plant medicines, because arguably marijuana is a plant medicine, right? It's the substance that's from the earth that can alter your mental states and things like that. We were discussing the relationship between these plant medicines and the light, and what drives us to leverage these plant medicines, and which plant medicines, because people have different relationships to different ones, and certain ones do nothing for them, certain ones do a lot for them, and sort of what happens in our spirit such that we are attracted to these different things. And we discussed this theory about the choice to connect to God's light and the choice to disconnect from God's life, and what happens in our life that makes it so that we choose like, actually God, I'm not messing with you right now, versus actually I am. And this idea of like victim and perpetrator. And if you are someone who has like perpetuated crimes, and in our ancestry we've all had parts of ourselves that have like hurt people and have been hurt by people, and this idea that it's the part of us that has hurt others that needs to make a conscious choice to reconnect to God's light, because in doing that and hurting someone, we were disconnected from God. These plant medicines are a way of sort of bypassing our will and going right to the source and right to the light. And that's why it can be really difficult, and why integration is so important after these plant medicines, because you can have the light, you can have the insight, you can have the like, wow, but unless you are making a conscious choice using your willpower to say, I want to remain connected to this light when I'm not high on whatever it is, whatever substance I'm using, then it won't matter, because it still just comes down to our personal choice and our personal desire to live a life of alignment and love and light, or to ignore our intuition, ignore what feels right, and stay in the darkness and stay in the shadow. I'm just sharing that with you in case it's relevant. It was a really interesting conversation I had with my friend, and I smoke weed and I've done a little bit of shrooms, but I've never engaged in any other plant medicines, and I've never really felt called to. My friend used the metaphor of taking a plant medicine as like, instead of walking from LA to New York, it's like taking a speed jet from LA to New York in terms of like the insights and like the openings and things. And I realized like, yeah, I'm okay walking. I'm okay taking the slow and steady route. It's in that way that I can really appreciate the journey, and then the journey I'll actually be able to be fortified by the time I get to the destination, versus kind of skipping all of that, shooting right to the moon, and then being like, whoa, and having to spend months, if not years, integrating. Because what I'm finding with the Timeless Wisdom training is we have our retreats and we have these incredible like experiences of healing and all that, and then it takes days, weeks, months to actually sit with and feel, and then allow the ripples into my life of the things that have like come up. I'm gonna honor myself by giving myself the time, space, resources to actually feel my feelings, implement what changes need to happen, integrate all the ripple effects of it, versus kind of taking any shortcuts on my spiritual journey. So that is my update on smoking that sweet marijuana. If you're around me, don't offer me any drugs. I'm like, drugs? Bad. So, yay. I love this just for me. All right, let me know in the comments if your relationship to weed has changed over these last few months since I put out my various videos about my relationship to weed. If you were on a journey of quitting, have you been able to remain sober? Have you ended up smoking more? I'd be very curious to hear. Shout out to the Patreon people. Y'all are the best. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.